Delaney Wilson stood on the sunlit steps of her family's two-story home in suburban Michigan, the white picket fence gleaming behind her, and felt that familiar knot of unease tighten in her chest. Caps and gowns had always been meant for celebration, her sister Madison's laughter drifting through the front door as she tried on her own graduation robe. But for Delaney, every milestone came wrapped in a reminder that she was never the one her parents Richard and Diane truly believed in. She could still hear Diane's voice. Crisp as autumn air, Madison has so much promise. You'll understand someday. From Christmas mornings where Madison eagerly tore into expensive gifts, while Delaney unwrapped practical socks and cheap craft kits, to science fairs where both parents cleared schedules to support Madison, yet barely glanced her way at Delaney's art exhibits, each moment had carved a silent line between them. Even neighborhood friends whispered about the golden girl, never noticing Delaney's quiet determination, or the long hours she spent sketching beneath the willow tree in grandmother Eleanor's backyard. Now, poised on the brink of her own graduation, Delaney's heart pulsed not with excitement, but with the delicious anticipation of setting things right. She'd spent years earning scholarships, balancing part-time jobs, and turning every doubt cast her way into fuel for success. Tomorrow, in her cap and gown, she would step forward not as the overlooked daughter, but as the embodiment of resilience, and finally, the thought of her parents' stunned faces would taste sweeter than any applause. Delaney paced the length of her childhood bedroom, the late afternoon sun slanting through the blinds and casting golden stripes across the floorboards, just hours ago. Her parents had dropped the bombshell they only had enough saved to send Madison, her younger sister, to Westfield University. Years of late nights spent working at the neighborhood cafe and balancing a 4.0 GPA meant nothing to them now. Devastated, Delaney had locked herself away, and for the first time, let the tears she'd held in for years fall freely. But the next morning brought a determination she had never felt so clearly. After a 2-hour drive, about 120 miles, she found herself on the porch of her grandmother's charming lake house, its weathered, clapboard siding warmed by the sun. Grandma Eleanor, stooped but spry at 82, greeted her with a soft embrace. "You have a gift, my dear," she whispered, brushing a silver strand of hair from Delaney's forehead. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." In the cozy library, with shelves lined by biographies of entrepreneurs and titans of industry, Eleanor poured Delaney a cup of chamomile tea and laid out a plan. "We'll figure out scholarships and grants," she said, tapping a worn copy of the Complete Guide to College Financial Aid, "and you'll work as many hours as it takes. Loans are just tools, borrow wisely, pay it back." Armed with her grandmother's unwavering belief, Delaney spent the next weeks transforming grief into action. She met with Mrs. Chen, her high school guidance counselor, who walked her through the free application for federal student aid FAFSA and a dozen scholarship applications. Each evening, Delaney returned to the cafe after a full day of classes, pausing only to sip lukewarm coffee before diving into essays for merit-based awards. On weekends, she delivered newspapers, earning just enough to cover gas for her little sedan's 300-mile round trip to Westfield's campus. Despite the exhaustion nights cut short to 5 or 6 hours of sleep, Delaney thrived. She won AJ $2,000 regional scholarship from the Michigan Business Association by outlining a community-driven marketing plan, and her grandmother rallied local donors through the church network to contribute small grants. By the time fall rolled around, Delaney had pieced together enough funds to cover her first semester's $12,000 tuition and the $800 security deposit on a modest apartment near campus. She signed the lease with trembling hands, feeling an immense pride replace the dread that had haunted her for days. Moving into her new home, a rented 2-bedroom unit 45 minutes south of the university, Delaney wrestled the boxes into the backseat of her sedan. She'd splurged on a sturdy dresser, but the couch and coffee table came from second-hand sales. As she arranged her grandmother's hand-me-down quilts on the twin bed, she realized this was more than just a chapter closing, it was her declaration of independence. The first morning on campus, Delaney rose at 5:00 a.m. for an hour of review in the student lounge before her 8:00 a.m. macroeconomics course. By midday, she was stocking shelves at the college bookstore. By late afternoon, leading a study group for fellow freshmen. On Wednesdays and Fridays, she shelved books after classes until 8:00 p.m., grabbed a quick sandwich, and studied financial accounting until midnight. It was grueling, but each completed assignment, each paycheck, brought her one step closer to proving her parents wrong and, more importantly, proving to herself that she belonged here. In the quiet moments riding the campus shuttle, folding laundry, sipping chamomile before bed, Delaney reflected on Grandma Eleanor's words. Diamonds are made under pressure. Every struggle, every hour worked for less than minimum wage, polished her resolve. As winter break approached, Delaney had a full year of credits completed. No student loans greater than $5,000 and a resume already dotted with leadership roles in campus clubs. When she returned home for the holidays, Delaney walked through the familiar rooms of her family's house with a different mindset. She was no longer the overlooked daughter, she was a determined young woman who had carved her own path. And come graduation day, the look on her parents' faces when they realized she'd done it entirely on her own would be the sweetest victory of all. By the time Delaney reached her sophomore year of high school, she'd already learned that resilience wasn't an optional trait, it was a lifeline. Each morning before the first bell at Jefferson High, she slipped into the home economics room to review her economics notes, the scent of cafeteria coffee lingering in the background. She'd joined every business-related club available: DECA, Future Business Leaders of America. Even the fledgling entrepreneurship incubator teacher, Mrs. Harding, had launched just that year and thrown herself into each with a quiet ferocity. When her classmates balked at drafting financial projections or marketing plans, Delaney stayed late, mapping out break-even analyses on scratch paper and poring over her grandmother Eleanor's dog-eared copy of the Lean Startup. Her natural aptitude for numbers and strategy surprised even her most encouraging teachers. In the regional DECA business plan competition, an all-day event held at the County Community College, Delaney presented a proposal for a pop-up cafe staffed by local students, designed to funnel a portion of profits back into scholarship funds for underprivileged teens. Judges praised her attention to detail and real-world feasibility. When she walked away with first place, her economics teacher, Mr. Rivera, called Richard and Diane Wilson at home that evening, practically bubbling over with pride. Diane's response, however, was a curt, "That's nice. Delaney, did you remind Madison to work on her history project?" That night, as she packed up her binders in the empty DECA room, Delaney felt the familiar ache of being the other daughter. Madison, 2 years younger, modeled the part of the golden child, flawlessly perfect blonde curls, effortless grades in every core class, and a spot on the debate team that Mom and Dad attended religiously. Meanwhile, Delaney's every achievement was quietly celebrated, if it was celebrated at all. Yet rather than letting frustration derail her, Delaney channeled it into disciplined action. Balancing a flawless 4.0 GPA with a 20-hour weekly shift at Rose's Cafe down the street tested her limits. In the early months, she would score her homework during the slow drip of the espresso machine, then deliver piping hot lattes to bleary-eyed cashiers who didn't know her name. Her worn Honda Civic, which clocked just over 20 miles per gallon on highway trips to college fairs, had become both her sanctuary and her command center. She'd tape sticky notes to the dashboard, reminding herself of upcoming deadlines: apply for Michigan Merit Award by Feb. 1 DECA State Qualifier presentation Mar 15, and play recorded lectures through the car's crackling speakers while stuck in traffic. Friends who sat beside her during lunch knew she was different. Instead of gossip or social media, Delaney dove into case studies on family businesses and innovative marketing tactics. When the bell rang, they'd dash to the quad. She'd pause only long enough to grab a granola bar before heading to the library to revise her executive summary for a scholarship essay. Sleep. She juggled 6 to 7 hours a night, recognizing that burnout wasn't an option and that every inch of progress counted. Through it all, the Wilson household remained a study in contrasts. Diane fussed over Madison's debate outfits, ironing ribbons and cooing encouragement. Richard rearranged the calendar to attend every tournament, while barely glancing at Delaney's volunteer efforts at the community center. "Art and charity are fine," he'd mutter whenever she mentioned her part-time nonprofit work, "but build marketable skills first." As if scrubbing dishes or shelving books at the local library didn't qualify. Yet those unspoken slights only sharpened Delaney's resolve. In October of her junior year, the Michigan Business Association awarded her a $2,000 scholarship based on her DECA success and community impact proposal, a moment she spent fist-pumping alone in her bedroom, while Madison rehearsed argument strategies in the next room. Grandma Eleanor, whom Delaney visited every Sunday, beamed when she delivered the winning check. "See, my diamond," her grandmother said. "Pressure makes you shine." By senior year, Delaney's resume glittered with leadership roles: president of FBLA, lead organizer for the school's first entrepreneur panel, and founder of a microgrant program that she'd pitched to local business owners. She maintained her GPA, worked 30 hours some weeks, and still made time for the sketches she stashed in her backpack, a reminder that creativity fueled her analytical mind. Her parents, at some point, stopped asking about travel costs or loan applications. The house no longer echoed with self-congratulations for Madison. Instead, quiet evenings found Delaney researching Westfield University's business program, plotting her next scholarship submissions, and dreaming of a day when her efforts would stand beyond question. In those high school halls, where every glance and whispered "she's so driven" built a silent narrative, Delaney forged her identity not as someone's overlooked sibling, but as a self-made force, one whose relentless work ethic and unwavering vision could not be dimmed by anyone's doubt, and that foundation would become the bedrock of her triumphs yet to come. By the spring of her junior year at Westfield University, Delaney Wilson had spent nearly 2 semesters balancing a punishing schedule of lectures, late-night study sessions, and 2 part-time jobs, yet in every spare moment. She nurtured an idea born from her grandmother Eleanor's kitchen table wisdom, turn her knack for organization and her growing marketing savvy into a real business. While most of her peers enjoyed weekend trips or sorority mixers, Delaney was sketching service packages and drafting client onboarding templates on the back of napkins. It started small, armed with $200 stipend from her research assistant position in the business department. Delaney purchased a basic website domain and hosting plan, just enough to launch Lakeview Virtual Assistants, a platform offering administrative support to local small business owners. She spent afternoons between classes cold calling boutique shop owners in the college town, pitching services like social media posting, calendar coordination, and light bookkeeping. Many calls ended in polite hang-ups, but a handful of entrepreneurs took a chance on her passion and hustle. By midsummer, Delaney's client list had grown to 6 steady accounts. She scheduled her heavy paperwork shifts at the campus bookstore around early morning Zoom calls, and used her commuting time 12 miles each way in her trusty Honda Civic to brainstorm service expansions, whenever she felt overwhelmed. She remembered Mrs. Chen's voice. "You've already proven you can handle a full course load. 2 jobs, and still earn honors. This business is just another challenge you'll master." That fall, Professor Bennett invited Delaney to apply for the National Collegiate Business Innovation Competition, a multi-round challenge awarding $50,000 in startup capital to the winning proposal. Delaney hesitated. Her schedule was razor-tight, but the professor's encouragement carried weight. "Your real-world experience with Lakeview is exactly what judges look for," Bennett said over coffee in her oak-paneled office. "Your insights into resource constraints are gold." Delaney dove in. She refined her platform's value proposition, shifting from simple virtual assistants to a focused package helping rural and suburban businesses translate their brick-and-mortar charm into online visibility. She drafted a 20-page business plan, ran mock pitches for classmates in the university incubator, and rehearsed her delivery until she could recite every statistic from memory: the 27% annual growth rate in small business e-commerce, the 45-hour weekly time savings she promised clients, and her own proven track record of boosting a local bakery's online orders by 30% in 6 weeks. As the first judging round approached, held in the campus ballroom under crystal chandeliers, Delaney felt the familiar flutter of nerves. But when she stepped to the podium in her navy blazer and spoke with clarity and conviction, her months of late nights and early mornings crystallized into a powerful narrative. She closed her pitch with a simple, heartfelt line: "I'm living proof that determination and smart planning can turn a $200 experiment into a scalable enterprise." The applause was polite, but the results were decisive. Delaney advanced to the semifinals, then to the final round held at the state capitol. On that chilly April morning, she presented alongside 10 other finalists before an esteemed panel of venture capitalists and university deans. When the head judge announced her as this year's champion, Delaney felt tears sting her eyes, tears of relief, validation, and the sweetest vindication. Her win turned heads. The campus newspaper ran a full-page story. Local business magazines requested interviews, and her parents Richard and Diane could no longer dismiss her as just hardworking. The $50,000 award enabled Delaney to hire 2 fellow students as paid interns and upgrade her website platform to support secure payment processing. More importantly, it gave her the credibility to secure a $10,000 small business grant from the Regional Economic Development Council. By senior year, Lakeview Virtual Assistants had evolved into a full digital marketing agency, serving 15 regular clients and netting enough revenue to cover Delaney's tuition, room and board, and modest living expenses. When Dean Rodriguez tapped her to deliver the student commencement address and later announced her as valedictorian, the moment felt not just like personal triumph, but the culmination of her grandmother's early encouragement and her own relentless drive. Delaney's entrepreneurial journey, sparked by kitchen table dreams and honed through sleepless nights, became a beacon for anyone who had ever been underestimated. In redefining success on her own terms, she proved that real-world grit, paired with thoughtful strategy, can transform an idea into lasting impact. When Delaney was just 8 years old, the contrast between her life and her sister Madison's was impossible to ignore, even for a child who had learned early how to swallow disappointment. Christmas morning felt like a ritualized reminder. Madison, with her sunlit curls and wide, eager smile, tore into glossy wrapped presents, brand new dolls, a remote-controlled car, expensive puzzles, while Delaney found under the tree a stack of practical gifts, warm socks in muted earth tones, discount store art kits, and a single paperback book. "Your sister needs encouragement with her talents," Diane would whisper whenever Delaney dared to question why Madison's box of Legos gleamed under the tree while Delaney's box of colored pencils lay unopened. It wasn't only the holidays that stung. At school science fairs, Delaney stayed up late crafting miniature volcanoes that bubbled and hissed when vinegar met baking soda, pouring her heart into detailed posters and hand-lettered captions. For Madison's science fair, their parents took off work, helped build a 3-tiered display about ecosystems, and snapped photographs in proud poses, photos that would later appear on the refrigerator door alongside Madison's Gold Star ribbons. When Delaney nervously wheeled her own volcano to the gymnasium tables, she counted on seeing at least a quick thumbs up from her mother during judging. Instead, Diane lingered just long enough to rearrange her hair in the reflection of a trophy case, murmuring, "Art is just a hobby. Delaney, science is more practical." Those early lessons, paid attention to by everyone except her parents, shaped Delaney's understanding of worth. She internalized the message that affection and support were conditional, reserved for Madison's effortless charm and straight-A reports. Yet somewhere beneath that disappointment, a quiet conviction was growing: if she could outwork every expectation, then no one could deny her value. At dinner tables suffused with polite applause for Madison's debate team victories, Delaney would pinch the napkin under her fingers, remind herself she was capable of more, and resolve to channel every slight into fuel for her own ambitions. By the time she reached 12, those ambitions had crystallized into a determined routine. Before dawn, Delaney sketched business ideas in a spiral notebook, jotting down cost estimates for a neighborhood recycling initiative or brainstorming marketing slogans for a pop-up lemonade stand at school. She joined the entrepreneurship club without hesitation, even though she knew her parents would attend every club meeting for Madison, but probably not spare a moment to see Delaney's presentations. After classes, she completed her volunteer hours helping underprivileged kids with homework, an unpaid role she saw as an investment in her own character rather than a chance for parental praise. On Saturdays, she and Madison appeared at their grandmother Eleanor's lakefront cottage, a sanctuary from the Wilson household's silent favoritism. Under the shady oaks, Eleanor would pour lemonade and listen. "Don't let anyone dim your light," she'd say, fixing Delaney with her warm, roomy gaze. "You see things differently, and that's your gift." Encouraged by her grandmother's unwavering belief, Delaney used those lake house afternoons to immerse herself in books about entrepreneurs, American icons like Mary Kay Ash and Andrew Carnegie, finding in their stories echoes of her own unspoken struggle. Yet the real proof of Delaney's developing resilience came when she translated childhood disappointments into concrete progress. By age 14, she had saved every dollar from weekend babysitting gigs to buy a second-hand laptop, her first window into the business world. On that old machine, she built websites for local artisans, learning HTML by trial and error, and pitched her classmates on joining a mock marketing agency she ran from her bedroom. They called it Wilson Wonders, a playful nod to her family name, and though the group never made real profit, the project gave Delaney a taste of leadership and revealed how resourcefulness could eclipse any financial or emotional deficit. Throughout middle school, every holiday and every family event became an opportunity to refine her edge. When Madison received a study abroad scholarship, Delaney quietly applied for every writing contest and STEM grant she could find, winning small but pivotal awards that filled the gaps left by her parents' selective generosity. Invitations to parent-teacher conferences came promptly for Madison. For Delaney, she often relied on her guidance counselor, Mrs. Chen, to celebrate her achievements. Yet Delaney never complained. She simply logged each success in her notebook, proof to herself that a consistent work ethic could overturn years of neglect. By the time high school loomed on the horizon, Delaney had woven early childhood disappointments into an unbreakable thread of determination. The practical socks and discount craft kits had become symbols, reminders that real value isn't bestowed at birth but earned through persistence. And every time someone overlooked her, She let that quiet dismissal sharpen her focus. Madison might remain the golden child in her parents' eyes, but Delaney carried within herself a glow that no favoritism could extinguish, the glow of a young woman who knew her worth and was determined to claim it on her own terms. By the spring following her triumphant graduation, Delaney Wilson found that her greatest reward was not the accolade of valedictorian or the six-figure consulting offer waiting for her. It was the chance to turn her own story of struggle into a lifeline for others, drawing on the countless hours she had spent poring over scholarship applications, navigating federal and state financial aid forms, and piecing together part-time wages and co-signed loans. Delaney approached Westfield University's advancement office with a bold proposal to establish a new scholarship specifically designed for students who, like her, had overcome significant family or financial obstacles to pursue higher education. Spearheading what would become the Delaney Wilson Resilience Scholarship, she began by tapping into her prize money from the National Collegiate Business Innovation Competition. With the $50,000 award, she seeded the endowment fund, setting a goal to provide $5,000 grants each year to 2 undergraduates who demonstrated exceptional determination, leadership in community initiatives, and a clear financial need, working alongside Dean Rodriguez and financial aid counselor Miss Winters. Delaney drafted the scholarship criteria. Applicants would submit a personal essay detailing the barriers they'd faced, whether it was supporting younger siblings, working full-time hours while carrying a full course load, or navigating the loss of a parent's financial support, and propose a small community project they planned to implement with the award. Next, she mobilized her network. Over the summer, Delaney hosted an intimate reception in the business school atrium, literally setting out crystal punch bowls next to posters outlining the scholarship's mission. She invited Professor Bennett, whose research assistant position had first opened doors for her, Zoe, the roommate-turned-business partner who had cooked meals and proofread essays, and representatives from Alexander Global Consulting, where she'd accepted her post-graduation role. Each guest signed on as an advisory member, offering to mentor recipients, review applications, and help promote the scholarship through local Rotary clubs and the Michigan Economic Development Council. Meanwhile, Grandma Eleanor, ever her stalwart champion, led a parallel fundraising effort within her community. Armed with homemade invitations and her trusty station wagon, the 82-year-old farmed out bake sale goods to church potlucks, securing modest donations of $20 to $50 each, but demonstrating the power of grassroots commitment. Those contributions covered administrative costs, printing flyers, hosting application workshops, and setting up an online portal, and underscored that an extraordinary scholarship could spring from very ordinary acts of generosity. By autumn, when Delaney returned to campus in jeans and a crisp button-down rather than professional attire, she found a buzz of excitement. Posters in the Student Center proclaimed, "Apply now, the Delaney Wilson Resilience Scholarship," and informational sessions filled the lecture hall, with her former classmates lining up to offer feedback on draft essays. In late October, the first 5 finalists were invited to present their community project pitches in a showcase panel attended by department chairs and local philanthropists. One applicant proposed after-school coding workshops for inner-city kids. Another aimed to launch a mobile pantry serving rural seniors. A third planned a peer mentoring network for first-generation students, each idea reflecting the same spirit of determination that had shaped Delaney's own journey. When the winners were announced, 2 juniors awarded $5,000 each, the auditorium erupted into a standing ovation that reminded Delaney of her own graduation day. She watched as the recipients, tears in their eyes, shook hands with Grandma Eleanor and embraced Zoe. In that moment, she realized the scholarship was more than financial assistance. It was a tangible affirmation of self-worth and community investment. Over the following months, Delaney continued to nurture the scholarship's growth. She convened quarterly meetings with the advisory board virtually, to accommodate business trips to New York and Chicago to assess fundraising strategies, mentor awardees, and plan outreach to high schools across Michigan. Each call reminded her of the transformative power of an empathetic community rallying around those who refuse to be defined by the limitations others impose. Ultimately, the Delaney Wilson Resilience Scholarship became Delaney's proudest legacy, a living testament to the principles she had embraced under her grandmother's willow tree. That diamonds are made under pressure. By channeling her own setbacks into opportunities for others, she ensured that future students would not have to fight alone, and that every dollar invested in resilience would yield returns far more valuable than any financial metric.